session. And it's just lovely to see so many of you here tonight. I'm going to hand over to Sandra Farr who's going to chair the meeting. I would just say, if you are not on our email list, if you look on our website and join up, then we will keep you updated with documentation and minutes from these kind of meetings. So thank you very much, over to Sandra.
Thank you, Rachel. I think we've got that's right. Sounds like a little bit of reverb or something. So, welcome everybody. I'm Sandra Fryer. I'm one of the members of the management committee at Harbour Community Association. Lived here for 40 odd years, and as many of you know, work in the area of planning and generation and development in my day job. Okay, is that better? Okay, let's not tell each other what to do. Let's be respectful and listen, please. Thank you very much. So, I'll just start again. I'm Sandra Fryer. I'm a member of the management committee at what was the Cliftonwood Community Association. Lived in this area for more than 40 years and been involved with HCCA in one form or another throughout that time. To my day job, I'm a planner, regeneration and development person, and can be often found to have in these sorts of pieces of work. So we've called this meeting as an information share meeting to enable local people to find out more about the local plan and Western Harbour. Before we get going, we just need to do a little bit of homework. Just in case there's a fire, which we're not planning, there's an exit over there and an exit over there. And they need to be kept clear as they are at the moment. We also have a few signs up because we'd like to have a few photographs taken to be able to record this, not in recording sense, but to have some pictures of community activity, basically. So I hope if your picture's taken, you'll be happy with that. And if you don't want it to be, perhaps at the end you let one of us know. So, as I said, this meeting has been set up to share information about the local plan, the Bristol local plan, Western Harbour. We do not intend to go into technical details tonight. We'll be interested in listening to your comments after our guests have spoken, and also to consider how those comments might feed into a community response, perhaps to the local plan, or help in shape the work of Western Harbour. As we all know, this is an area, places don't stand still, and there are things that need to change in this area, not least of all some bridge repairs, and some of us probably have a view about the roads and the congestion, and of course there's the matter of being so close to the water and flooding. But I'm not going to talk about detail, we're here to hear the strategic conversations. I hope as you listen to the presentations, you will think and reflect, perhaps on the questions you'd like to ask, perhaps on things you'd like to go away and find out more about, and perhaps how you will contribute to the placemaking of our local community going forward. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Simone Bardin, who's the new head of planning at Bristol City Council. Many of us will be delighted to have a new head of planning and know how important it is to the city. Simone has a big task ahead of her. And also to introduce you to Emily Price, who is the Senior Regeneration Manager covering the Western Harbour area. And there's an international colleague intern with us also at the back, who's listening and observing how we do things in England rather than Germany. So I'm going to hand over now to Simone, who's going to talk about the local plan. We're going to run straight in to a presentation from Emily on Western Harbour. Emily and Simone have to leave at 8, but we have half an hour more when we can continue to take questions and reflect on where we're going with this important piece of work.
Hello everybody, I hope you can hear me all right. Good. Right, I'm going to talk to you about the local plan, the new emerging local plan, which is currently out to publication. And so, just to recap briefly, a local plan is there to provide a positive framework for planning, and so that planning applications that then subsequently come forward can be decided in line with that plan. The plan will only take on that form once it's actually adopted. At the moment, it's at its publication stage, like I said, and that means there is still about a year of examination to come. I go into a bit what's actually coming on. So there have already been 3 rounds of consultations. The first one back in 2018, and then the last one, and we finished January 2023. And we've listened to what people have said in these previous rounds of consultations, and that has informed what is now the publication version. So the yellow box that's highlighted, that's where we currently are. And as you can see, the publication period is closing on the 26th of January, so a week on Friday. So if you want to make a representation and haven't already done so, please get it in by then, because that's crucially important. And I'll come back to that again at the end, but please do use the portal for it, because that massively helps us to keep to time and progressing it. As I said, we then have about a year, so once we've received all the comments, we are then collating these and need to submit them to the Planning Inspectorate, who are an independent body of central government, and which some people might see that as a contradiction in itself, but that's how it is. It's an independent body, but paid for, I suppose, by central government, and they then examine the plan. And as part of that, if you have made a representation, you can then take part in the examination too and reinforce any points that you may want to make. And then we hope that by about spring next year, we get the inspector's report. That's what the whole examination culminates in, that we get the inspector's report telling us we can adopt our plan. And at that point, we then need to go back to the full council to adopt the plan, and at that point it then has full weight. Until then, it can get a little weight, but not consistently. And actually, that's where it gets very technical, and Sandra said we're not to get technical, so I won't get technical now. This slide is just to illustrate the breadth of the local plan that it covers. Basically, lots and lots and lots of important topics. Starting with a vision, because it's all about planning, like I said, planning positively for the type of Bristol we want to see emerging and developing over the next 15 years. So the local plan does look forward to 2040, and it has to do that. That, again, is one of the requirements that the inspector will be testing. So it's about setting the long-term development framework for Bristol so that we can grow in an inclusive and sustainable way. That's basically at the heart of what we're seeking to achieve with this plan, so that that everybody can find a job, that people who want to live in Bristol can live in Bristol, and that we have enough affordable housing as well, so that all the key workers can be accommodated near to where we need them. So, moving on. This is just to say it is about the development strategy, but there is also a visual, or like a spatial representation then of what does this development strategy look like. You can't see very well from here, but this is the whole of Bristol, and you'll see the yellow dots. Those are all the sort of regeneration areas, and the areas the specific term is slightly different, but basically they're identified for development, where more development can happen because there is substantial regeneration opportunity. And I'm not sure if there's that. Can you see where it says WH there? That's the Western Harbour, which is also identified as a regeneration area. And you'll see lots of purple there at the Avonmouth. That's where a lot of the employment, where a lot of additional employment land is allocated, because actually providing enough employment land, particularly for industrial uses, is one of our key challenges as a city. That's not to say that there is also employment land within the city, but most of it is out at Avonmouth. Right. Moving on, and I thought you probably might be most interested in the Western Harbour, and hence zooming in onto that sort of more central area a bit more. So it's the same diagram as earlier, just sort of zoomed in on that area. And basically it just shows you as well what exactly so the lines on the map matter, because depending on what falls within the line, different policies apply. Because in addition to that policies and to the map that I've shown you, there's in excess of 200 pages of, but they're not all policies, there's of course a lot of explanatory text as well. Many of the policies apply across the plan, but many also apply only to specific areas. And this is the one for Western Harbour, but this is the starting bit for the Western Harbour, and again, just including that for, so you get the feel for it and the flavour. It's a relatively high level, I would say, and that's quite deliberate, because it's such a long-term plan. Like I mentioned, this is a plan for up to 2040. It has to be sufficiently flexible to actually, be able to work for such a long period of time. At the same time, we know that in order to be able to really help with specifics, we also need more detail. And that additional detail is coming from additional work that we're doing, in this case the master planning, Emily will talk a little bit more about, that will then supplement the local plan and provide that additional detail. So here we've got the high level objectives, and then additional detail on what exactly we expect this to look like to come through the master planning. And that the same approach we take in many of the other regeneration areas as well. I suppose, but master planning is also quite expensive, and I think we're really pleased and lucky that we have obtained funding for master planning the Western Harbour from WECA, which is great because we can therefore do a much better job on this. We haven't got that on all of the regeneration areas. I wish we had, because we could do a much better job then, but we just have to live with the reality. What's next? Place principles. This is what I've just said, that it's the master plan that will define those place principles in much greater detail, and actually start then mapping out what it looks like on the ground. And as part of that, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, Emily, but there'll be a lot more engagement and opportunity to get involved with that as part of when that master planning then kicks off and actually proceeds. This is just the aerial photo of again what's included in that regeneration area. So that's the area that the Western Harbour policy applies to. The bits outside. Arguably, the policy is slightly flexible though, and if stuff came forward, that may still be relevant then. But this is in the first place where the policy applies to. What else? And just a few more slides, which are a bit more generic in terms of what the local plan covers for, just for context. So policy H1 is about the delivery of new homes. That is one that applies to the whole of Bristol. like I said, one of the key objectives that the local plan needs to achieve is about providing for sustainable development and making sure that people have a home to live is one of the most important things. We know that we don't, at the moment, are not providing enough homes. So the local plan is therefore setting this target of what we think we can sustainably provide. And the figure that we're putting forward, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of debate about that at the examination, is at least 1,925 homes per annum. So over the period of the plan, that's just under 35,000 houses. This is still a lot less than what the need calculations actually show us. But like you saw from the spatial diagram earlier, because we're so constrained, unless we build loads and loads and loads of tower blocks, and unless we go into the green belt a lot, there are some constraints that we have to be realistic about, and trying to strike that balance. This is the figure that we've come up with that we can sustainably deliver. It may be slightly higher, and that's why we're saying at least 1,925 per annum. But even if it's 2,000 per annum, it will still be a lot less than what in technical terms, the objectively assessed need for Bristol is coming out at. There is then the other policy about affordable housing provision. Again, applies to the whole plan. And this is, I've always just shown you the top lines more or less here, which is the core of the policy. The whole policy is actually quite long. It's probably about 3/4 of a page. But at the core of it is that we need to substantially increase the amount of affordable housing we build. So again, it goes back to being able to provide enough housing for everybody so that we can be an inclusive society. And therefore, 35% of every housing development that's 10 plus houses, we will be seeking 35%. This is a big challenge because we know that in many parts, particularly in regeneration areas where you're dealing with contamination on previously developed land and so on, the viability isn't there to deliver that. But where we are proposing quite a forward-thinking approach of maximising what we can get from developers without subsidy, but then supplementing it, making them work with us so as to, together, then come up with 35% everywhere. If we achieve this, this will double the amount of affordable housing we can provide over the planning period in comparison to what we've been able to do so far. Because simply relying on basically the developer's contribution has not been delivering enough. That's the sorry reality. And just to highlight that there is a lot in this plan as well about biodiversity and green infrastructure. And again, just the diagram here to illustrate that. These are all the areas identified for green protection, basically. And there are many more, and actually, if you want to read the detail on it, here is a link. Are we circulating the slides afterwards? Or? Yeah, happy to. But actually, there is, for all these policies that I've talked about and the plan in general, it's all evidence-based, I should have said. It's all evidence-based, and then further topic papers then backing up the policies that we are putting forward. And so this is just one of them for the green spaces. And now a bit about, I touched on this earlier about how to respond. Please respond by a week on Friday at the very latest. So 26th of January is the last day you can respond. And please do it via the portal as well. That would be that would massively help us. Clearly, if you can't do it by the portal, then we'll accept it in a different format as well. But if you want to help us, because we are actually really stretched with our resources, then that will make our job a lot easier, because then that sort of administrative part is just done by the computer.
Sorry, could you just reassure people in the room who may not be able to do it by the portal, support to do it in another way? So while you're asking people to do it like a portal, you might have an accessible way.
That's what I've said. If you can't do it by the portal, if you can only email it in, or even if you bring something in hard copy, that's all possible. But it would help us massively if you can do it by the portal.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't do that very clearly. We'll come back to that later.
Yeah. And I think that was my last slide.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you very much, Simone. Let's carry on straight into Emily's words. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Sandra, for introducing me, and thank you to Sandra and Rachel for inviting us to your meeting tonight. I'm Emily Price. I'm the Regeneration Manager for Western Harbour and some of the wider Harbour area as well. I'm also a local resident. I've lived in Sandfield for 24 years, and I'm there with my family, and we regularly enjoy the harbour and this area with my young family. But I'm just here today to give you an update on the status of the Western Harbour project. I'm hoping you can see better than I can see on the screen there. But just to give you a quick recap, we've worked together with the city and with, I can see some faces around the room that I recognise from when we did some engagement to create a vision for Western Harbour, which we had completed and endorsed in July 22. We've secured some funding to help us develop a master plan, and in particular an infrastructure delivery plan and feasibility, which will help us and give us a huge step forward in progressing the much needed work for this area. And as Simone said, it will kind of tie into the local plan work as well. Just a reminder, and I'm sure you're all well versed and understand some of the issues that the area has, but just some of the headline issues and opportunities that the site brings, from the need to look at how we either update, replace, repair the infrastructure that is around this area, the lifespan of it, and the cost that we currently pay for maintenance is increasing year on year. So we need a better plan for that. We also have the Bristol Labour Flood Strategy that is emerging, that we need to respond to and develop with our colleagues who are leading on that particular project. And that's obviously looking at how we can protect the city, the existing homes and premises, and also future building as well. As Simone says, we need new homes. This is a sustainable location. We have an operational harbour that we always have to have in mind as well. So there's lots of different issues, and gosh, I haven't even mentioned the heritage assets that we have. I was looking at Jack here, the heritage assets that we have within this area and the actual location as well. So lots of issues, but also lots of opportunities to make a great place. And as I just sort of touched on, there's lots of opportunities, and we must not forget that we have to link in and we mustn't lose sight of some of those other projects that are happening around the area, like the Avon Flood Strategy, like Bristol City Leap, about requirements for new energy centres and pipe work, a lot of the transport work and the harbour assets improvement. Also, we need to consider all of those within the mix of the Western Harbour Master Plan. Here's a reminder of the vision that we worked on with yourselves and the wider community, and all of this is on the Harbour Hope's website. along with a full report on all the engagement that we did that kind of enabled us to get to this stage. So there's sort of 4 main themes, and then underneath each of those themes there are 6 commitments that are set out in the vision. So there's 2 there. So I won't go over these in detail because these are this is all available, and again we can send this presentation to Sandra and can share it, but also it's on the Harbour Hopes website. So where are we now? We're in the process of commissioning a master planning team, a professional team who will come and work with us. And when I say us, it's work with the City Council team, but also the community to help us develop a master plan for the area. So we are looking for a design-led team. It's likely to be like an architect, master planning consultancies, and they're likely to have sub-consultants who will cover transport engineering, all expertise they don't hold in-house, and also experts in community engagement and consultation. So we're expecting them to have a lot of experience and to have done similar projects elsewhere, whether it's in this country or abroad. And in terms of when that team will be on board, the deadline for those applications was at the end, just before Christmas, and we're currently evaluating all the bids that we've had in, and so we expect to be in a position to appoint that team in February and make an announcement of who the successful team are to then enable them to mobilise and start work in March. So alongside this, we are looking to recruit for new members of the Western Harbour Advisory Group, and we're keen to find people to join and work with us and the professional team to bring your views and your lived experience and diversity of thought to the process. And we'll be starting the recruitment of this very shortly in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be focusing and looking for people who can bring ideas and passion about the themes that are set out in the vision. And we'd want the group to work with us on that and have regular meetings with us and the professional team that we'll have appointed. And we're committed to making sure that we listen to the voice of the citizens and the community, and we want to make sure that obviously we as a project team and also the master planning team are shaping a place with people in mind, and who better to talk to than the people who live in the city at the moment. So what we're doing is we'll start this recruitment process, so we'll have an application form so people can register their interest and apply. We're keen to get a mix of organisations representing local community groups like yourselves and citywide interest as well. And we're looking for people who can help disseminate information and collate views from their networks as well. After assessing the applications, we'll make a recommendation to the Harbour Programme Board, which is an internal board that I report to. And it's our intention that we can appoint this group of people by March, but if there's a delay, we may have to consider how this will work after the elections and the pre-election period that will kick in. And just to clarify, the Western Harbour Advisory Group won't be the only forum for consultation and engagement. One of the first tasks of the newly appointed master plan team will be to develop an engagement plan to demonstrate to us how we're going to engage with the city, the community, over the lifetime of their work. So this is just a kind of a bit of a five-month look ahead. Sorry, I should have incorporated Simone's dates in here as well, but she'll hopefully she's obviously set those out already. But yeah, just a lot of my work at the moment is doing the tender evaluation, but this kind of sets us out until May, until the elections, and then obviously we will need to brief the new committee and the new administration on the project, and work that we're doing. I'm really conscious of time, and we're running back over, so I'm going to stop talking, hand back to Sandra, and we welcome questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Simone and Emily. That's great. So we've got 20 minutes, 25 minutes of Simone and Emily's time, and so I invite questions in a moment. Remember, I tried to say information, not too detailed technical questions. We'll carry on from 8 till 8:30, taking more questions and seeing how we can respond to them and where perhaps the community views and response, how it might develop. But are there any people who would like to ask questions? And what I'm minded to do, depending on how we come up, is to take the little bunches, little couple over there and then over there kind of thing. So, and Julian has got a roving mic, so you can all hear the questions and go from there. Would you like to put your hands up? This lady at the front first then. Oh, just a second. Could you all please introduce yourself when you speak so that we know perhaps what your interest and where you come from? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Karen Ross. I live up in Clifton Village, but obviously very interested in the plans. I just wanted to know who owns the land. Is there a land ownership issue, or is it land assembly exercise you've got to go through, or does this Bristol control it?
So the City Council owns the majority of it. There are a couple of some houses within it that are not owned by the city, and obviously there's a lot of long leases that are within the area as well. And to the south there's an area that's owned by Wessex, the pumping station. So so the majority of it is owned by the City Council, and it's in various sort of guises of like parts of it are Harbour Authority land, etc. But yeah, the majority.
Thank you. Stephen?
Simone, at the end of your presentation, you flagged up GL1, the local green space, and GL2, the reserved open space. A peculiarity of DS4 in 2019 consultations, which is Western Harbour, was that the red line was applied to the consultation for new protection for open space. And all the green spaces and open spaces in the Western Harbour red line were taken out of the three wards of Southfield, Bedminster and on Western Harbour side and not considered. So we now reach the final plan, 5 years on, and those spaces still aren't there. They exist, we walk our dogs in them, we do whatever, but basically they've not been considered under the 2019 consultations, and we're left totally uncertain as to what their priority will be now. So I'm talking about Sylvia Crow's green spaces that form the opening picture for
You're quoting policy GL1, isn't it GL11? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I think I'm not too sure exactly about the detail. I mean, I don't go back that far. I only started in May, so don't quiz me too much on all that detail. I think we had a similar question before, and when we talked about it internally, I think the reason why so are all these sites that you're talking about within the regeneration area, and I think
it's of note that there are no spaces on Spike Island at all. And then when you come to Western Harbour, where the red line, as you say, is very significant, there's bits that people who look after Brown's Mile Park, for example, consider theirs, but maybe highways think of theirs.
I think the key...
They're in the red line.
Yeah.
And so on.
I think the key reason is likely to make sure that we're not constraining the master plan too much from the start. However, clearly where you've got existing valuable green space, that is something to build on. You wouldn't, I would have thought that is something a master planner will take into account and look to make the most of it. But it's mainly to make sure that we don't put too many constraints before we even in the way before we start. But creating access to green spaces locally and making sure
document where you can write your concern in, write your suggested solution, and do a few other answering questions about whether the plans sound, which are actually quite difficult with these big little questions. Then again, ping press is submitted, and that's the process that is available at the moment, open until next Friday. Where are we to discuss as well? Okay, it's a very important point because we need to work out whether those particular open spaces where they are kept, whether they move, don't they? That's the issue that's behind this.
And I think, thank you, Sandra, actually the point you've made is a really, really important one. I should forgive myself. Please do make these representations as part of the formal publication period. It may be of interest to debate it tonight, but actually what really counts is to debate that at the examination. You know, I can't do anything based on whatever debate we have tonight. The really important thing is to make sure that that is discussed during the examination. I've given you an explanation why I think there's a good reason why it wasn't done, and actually doesn't mean anything in the sense it doesn't mean what is being implied. I think we're keen to keep plenty of green spaces, including in those areas.
We need to get that then into the
I mean, the general aspiration is in there, but anyway, make the submission.
I suggest we keep asking Emily similar questions and we maybe pick that up again when we've got it in a little bit more detail. Going for that, sorry. Richard?
I'm a resident within your lives that matter and referencing not losing sight of important aspects. Why is it that within all of the consultative processes previously, in everywhere I've looked within the published local plan for the DS for Western Harbour area, and within the brief for the master plan, not a single reference is made to the 135 people and their homes that live within that red line area. You will blight our lives if you don't recognise that there's an existing community. Literally, there is not a single reference to our community. And we experience our exclusion and marginalisation through the Harbour Homes process. We didn't think the outcome was that bad. But then we reflected on how the council responded to the consultation on it. So we have deep concerns. So making sure that green space, that homes, that our heritage, that our nature conservation corridor of great importance, and seeing some realistic picture of what you think you can squeeze as a cork into a pint pot actually really matters to our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just echo the comments around that from me? I think that we all identify slightly different areas in this community, but it matters a lot to all of us, which is why we're here tonight, I think. But it's certainly why I'm here tonight. And the mental mapping and actually how the neighbourhood works is something that I personally don't think the local plan understands at the moment. So perhaps we'll come back to that. Who's next? Gentleman, who's Julian? Gentleman there. Back and then one forward.
Hi there. One of the big questions that needs to be answered is whether the road level is going to be replaced or changed from an elevated system to a low level system. So my question is kind of two parts. When is that decision going to be made? Will it be like before the money from master planning is spent or after it, so the decision can be changed?
That's a question for Emily, sorry.
And where will you be going to Parliament to test the law change so that it's legal?
I can't answer the second question, but the first question, the master plan process will help determine what the road layout and will look like, and that will be part over the next year. So that's
Yeah, hi, I'm Tim Moran, I'm the Sheriff Trustees for the City Vet Section down on the Harbour here. And I was just a little concerned because on Simon's sort of visual satellite image, it looks as though Avon Quay is included in the area. But then I was looking at the Harbour Hopes and some of those plans, which are, I think, a little bit old or dated, certainly 22. And I know there's been a debate as to whether Avon Quay is in or is out, but there just seems to be a bit of clash between the two sort of sets of documentation.
That's, to me, a funny question, because it's part of the area of England, isn't it? But everything else is
Yeah, so I should also clarify, because the master plan area that we're currently looking at isn't as wide as the local plan growth area. It doesn't include, it sort of borders parts of the site, so it doesn't include the caravan site or under 4 yard. So yes, so the master plan site boundary that we're currently looking at doesn't go as wide as the Western Harbour policy plans. You're right, they are slightly different. It doesn't mean to say that it doesn't mean to say that the master plan doesn't need to consider its wider context. Obviously that will be key to understanding the site, understanding the connections and the surrounding community. So yes, so they are slightly different. But
I would also just add, so while the master plan looks at like a smaller area, it doesn't mean that for those other areas that are then outside of that master planning area, it would still be relevant. You know, the master plan will also come up with concepts that are wider than just its immediate locality. Plus, it's always important to make connections and so on. So I wouldn't read too much into those differences in terms of locality.
One of the interesting points that comes up from that was, from memory, one development site on Cumberland Road, which would count as beyond the Western Harbour, but following a line thought could be another change site in the context of this change in place. That's a tough one to call, isn't it? Perhaps the question is, should the boundary be the same? But we'll maybe come back to that later. Let's go over here, go to there, and then we'll take Sorry.
What I would say about the local plan certainly is that it does talk a lot about existing residents, maybe not in those terms, but it does talk a lot about community. Maybe not, it doesn't talk about it specifically in that policy, but it does talk a lot in the generic parts. And it is also a principle in planning that you don't keep repeating what generically applies. And so I would say there is, you know, it clearly is for the existing community as well, and we do want the existing community to be involved in shaping and getting the best out of development that we're bringing forward. But actually, a lot of the time, it's not us bringing forward. A lot of the time, we're dependent on working together with the private sector and actually shaping what's coming forward.
I'd like to add, you know, if there's any lessons learned that we can pick up from you in terms of how we can better engage with the most immediate community, happy to pick that up with you and learn from that as we move forward, but definitely not to involve and have conversations and meetings like this as we move forward. So hopefully we can start fresh and have good conversations as we develop plans.
Probably much smaller meetings if there's some fairness. Right, over here, ladies.
Thank you. Caroline Bracebrook, I live locally. My question follows on about the road, the main A4 road, which passes through the site. And my understanding is that as it's a national road, it's National Highways who make decisions on what might happen to the potential moving or the keeping it where it is. And you say that the road will be considered as part of the master plan time, but because it's a national decision,
it's a local, it's main government as opposed to local level. I want to understand how you're going to feed that information into the design by the master planners, because I think the road is such a key element of the project, and so much depends on this road. And I think there's so many unanswered questions about this road and where it might or may not be moved to.
Yeah, I can't answer the detail of that. We are the City Council is the Highways Authority. Our Highways team maintain the road as it currently stands. So the National Highways Authority will be a stakeholder and have conversations. And yes, we will need to have later down the line, if there are whatever plan we come up with, we'll need to have various approvals to do all of that. But this is the starting point of that piece of work. But we are the Highways Authority and we need to come up with a plan for how we continue to have that as a strategic piece of highway.
Maybe just to add, I think you're absolutely right, but I suppose what it also shows, what the question is, it's a highly complex area. There is also, separately to the local planners also provide for, have policies on transport, which is clearly important. It does drive or seek to encourage much more sustainable transport, so much more about away from car-based travel and more around sustainable travel. How to deliver this is often done through the, or is in the first instance, certainly the more expensive stuff needs to come through in collaboration with WECA and our neighbouring authorities as well in developing our joint local transport plans, I think they're called, which are separately and being developed in parallel. But again, the master plan, like Emily has said, will be the key thing to inform that. And if a bid has to be made to national government, that's the route to do it. So it's a key piece of evidence.
Hello, Rupert Martin. I live on the island, and so do my friends here. My main concern is a huge volume of traffic is siphoned off past our community in the existing plan. And if we lose the Plimsoll Bridge and all the traffic is brought into, circulating around the island, there's going to be huge disruption and pollution and a lot of unnecessary entrance into our area of traffic that at the moment bypasses it. So I hope that the master plan will consider the road design layout, which is extremely effective at the moment in siphoning off traffic from residential areas, which the existing plan seems to be bringing into our area and will be extremely damaging to the community who lives there.
Thanks for your comments. Just to clarify, there isn't an existing plan. We don't have a plan for Western Harbour, and so yeah, there isn't a plan that has been agreed for Western Harbour or the road network.
Do you think that say two questions together this time? We've got 5 minutes with MPs and then we'll use. So I think the most important ones to ask.
Could I ask about affordable housing? Affordable is a weasel word, isn't it? It's not actually affordable for most of the people in Bristol who need housing. What sort of influence or what sort of future view do you have of the chances of actually building in this area the housing that is needed by people who currently can't afford to live?
Yeah, you're right, but also that actually affordable, there's in a way a plain English version and there's a technical version. And the technical version of affordable housing in planning terms is actually quite specifically defined, and it means that it's been social rented housing. It means that there's actually lots of different forms. There's also discounted market housing, and don't test me on the details. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that it's quite well defined. It means that is actually affordable, and there's mechanisms for distributing it to make sure that those on the list for who are most in need for affordable housing get it. So that is fairly tightly regulated, and by massively increasing and changing our approach to make sure we get more of this specific affordable housing, so that it is actually affordable, we should get much more than what we're currently getting.
You're optimistic about that.
You have to be.
Can I just add to that? That we know this in this area. Most of the sites are owned by the council, and the council has the opportunity to use its wholly owned housing company, Goran Homes, or to work in partners with other housing developers who will deliver what the community needs. So the community voice could play that back. Because, we all know we live here now, we may not be able to live here when we're much older because there aren't the right places to live in. So there's a conversation about housing need which needs to feed into the local plan, but in particular into the local Western Harbour, I think.
We're very much. I'm John Bradfield. I live on the waterfront, Runnymede. We keep understandably coming back to the road system as the starting point because everything else has to fit in around that. Marvin Rees's plan had, I think, 5 or 6 different options for where the Cumberland flyover might be and how the road system might work, and we had great difficulty in getting our eyes on all those plans. We're here this evening to understand how it works this time. Will there be one road system proposed, or will there be a number of different road systems proposed, and we take the choice?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that. We want to explore what the options are. We need to make sure they're deliverable, they're viable. We need to make sure that they consider a wide range of issues, not only traffic and engineering, but we consider all of the ambition that we put within and that people contributed to the vision. So how do those different options consider kind of all the sort of the wider aspects? So I can't say for now that we'll have X number of options I don't think there'll ever be a situation where we'll be looking for people to vote on an option. I think there'll be an opportunity for you to comment and contribute and capture your views. But I think that's something that we can explore with the team as and when they're on board. So sorry I can't answer that specifically, but I definitely will be able to explain how we've come to the decision that we've come to when we share whatever options that may emerge as we I'm not answering the question very well, but I think the idea, the main thing is there isn't a defined option, and we want to make sure that we can come up with something that we can share and have comments and debate with people on.
The consultants team will run an iterative process between them. It'll be, how does this area work, what are we trying to do, and in private they'll test out lots of different options, and then one would hope come out with 1 or 2 ideas that would share in some workshops and share, if you do the roads like this, these are things you can get, and you build it up. That's why it's so important that the community sets this ambition of the different component parts, and we work out a way to work with the council on this. That's my view. Lady at the back, and then sits at the back. So I don't think you go around. I think we should take these 2 and then please find us again.
Hello, my name is Polly Lloyd and I live in Freedom Place actually. Could you just clarify for me, when this team have spent the next 12 months taking into account everything we've spoken about today, and all the aims and the hopes are very laudable, but as we've heard this evening, the devil's in the detail, at the end of the 12 months, are we presented with a fait accompli, or do we have a vote again, another consultation? Neither of those 2 alternatives appeal to me. I think the idea, everybody will think, oh my God, that road can't go there. But I can't face more years of going through planning and consultation. So could you just clarify for me? This is one for you, Emily. What will happen at the end of the 12 months of the master plan?
So at the end of that process, we will have to go to obviously we're getting a new committee system, so we'll have to go to a committee system to get them to agree the master plan. We'll then need to work out, and as part of the process that we go on with the master plan team, we'll work out how best we're going to use that master plan. So, as we mentioned, the majority of the land holding is the City Council. So it's whether we need to go ahead and get a planning application on the basis of that master plan. All of that needs to be worked out. It hopefully will be the start of a process where we can then say, okay, to WECA, to central government, right, we have a plan for the road, how we're going to solve the issue with the road, and it will be the start of a process by which we need to secure additional funding from, it'll be probably central government or through WECA to help deliver that. And that is a long process, but this will be the start of that process, and the the evidence base for us to be able to take that forward. So it's not, master planning is not, as I'm sure you're all aware, it's not a quick process, and we're at the sort of start of that journey on this particular area. So there will be consultation moving forward.
Can I just pick that just a moment? If the master plan says don't move the road, repair it, that can still be an option, can't it? And I think one of the things we haven't talked about, but I know people in the room want to be mindful of, is the flood risk, the water proximity, the harbour issues. Maybe just say a word about that in terms of how that will work.
Yeah, so I think I've had it on all of the slides to sort of say that there are, it's a very complex site. I've worked on regeneration projects that have been complex, but I don't think any of it is this complex, and there's lots of issues to consider. And also, it's such a unique, and again, it's not a word that we use a lot, it's such a unique site and a unique area. So we're really keen to make sure, we're really passionate to make sure that we get the very best master plan. Really fantastic team working with us, working with the city and the community. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have all the answers tonight, but hopefully as we move forward with the team, once they're on board, we can kind of explore some of these issues with you and debate and kind of learn from one another, and hopefully come up with the best solution that can be delivered.
I'll just add, that example, so flooding, is a good point, thank you. It is actually one of the things where, this is not a Western Harbour issue, this is a Bristol issue, this is actually more than a Bristol issue, this is a national issue, where Bristol as a big player in the national economy, that's really what's at stake, and that's how we're tackling it. Interestingly, coincidentally, just earlier this week, the flood strategy, which is dealing with it at this bigger level at which it has to be dealt with, went to the Cabinet. So if you're really interested, go and have a look on the website. Cabinet papers are published there, and that's when we'll give you the outline of the outline business case, how we're progressing tackling this, because this is a massive big issue, and this is probably the biggest challenge that is Bristol is faced with, and that we need to solve. And we will only save it with the.
I can see Annabelle, so a very quick question.
Why don't you do the simple things you used to do 50 years ago, like Brexit?
Anna's asking why don't you do the simple thing in Brexit?
That was the simple thing years ago.
I don't think that would solve the problem.
I think that was a Christmas conversation, wasn't it? And it's much more complicated than that, I think. Anyway, thank you. So then let's just thank Simone and Emily. So thanks very much. I'm sure sorry they live other things pervade. So thanks for coming. We're happy to take any more questions or comments, or we're going to go. Okay. One thing that Harbour Political Community Association is interested in understanding is, does the community want us to make a representation on your behalf? Do you want to share your thoughts, and/or we encourage you to make your own comments on the local plan in particular? Because the key moment now is to make comments on the local plan. And then as the Western Harbour work unfolds, that would become more detailed, I suppose. We'll carry on taking some questions, and I know there are a few hands that haven't had a chance to speak. We'll see where we go, shall we? We've got the room booked at 6:30. Sibs at the back.
Not seen is obviously there's huge levels of deprivation within the city. These strategic developments are happening very central. However, it is not necessarily clear what is the social and economic impact that these developments will have on skills, jobs, and enterprise. So, when these contracts are awarded, 20% is for social value. However, the city still fails to have a very strategic approach with its social value. If we are to look at this development and link it with Temple Quarter and so forth as a development, then we need to understand what is the skills, enterprise, business improvement that this would actually have to be seen, because currently, businesses are coming in from somewhere else and they develop and they go. So therefore, they don't have the aspirations that you would all aspire to have. What they're thinking about is doing the job and getting out. So I think that's really a key part to focus on when it comes to the social value. Secondly, when you look at the border that they want to focus on this site, outside of that, there are areas of deprivation within Clifton and Harbour's. Now, if they don't have a social value that links into those areas, then it's a missed opportunity, because it's only developing for itself, but not for the existing communities outside of that boundary. And there should be an element in which you are able to secure the civil infrastructure levy for the redevelopment of the area in terms of schools and transport that the area can control. Otherwise, the development and the silver money that's generated could easily go to areas that are always classed as in high, such as South Street. There are needs here that, because of the profile of the ward, are overlooked. But there's multiple communities that are living in high-rise flats that don't have access to anything else and have to go to other communities. So this plan does not focus on that, and I think we need to make sure that we can bring that in.
Thank you, Susan. There's a number of things in that, because the plan talks about growth sites around the central area, not across the whole city. And the presumption of intense growth in these areas, often in areas already facing a lot of deprivation. And is that the best plan? The other question that's certainly in my mind, and I know on other people's minds, is this city doesn't thrive on all the jobs being in Avonmouth. It never has. Yet this plan seems to be giving permission to lose jobs other than those in Avonmouth. I think that needs some very careful scrutiny. But yeah, that's my contribution at that point. Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to ask a question? Lady over there. Deb's, in fact.
Hi, I'm Deb Appleby. I first lived in Hot Wells about 40 years ago, and I've returned in the last year, so I'm really out of date. I just wondered what discussion there'd been about whether a neighbourhood plan would be helpful, and whether that might address some of these issues. I've got a bit of a background in it, so it may be that it just isn't appropriate, but I feel community engagement doesn't feel like people feel that's worked so far, and whether there's something more we can do in the next year.
Do you all know what a neighbourhood plan means? So the planning legislation has the framework where you can propose to have a neighbourhood plan. You prepare it like a local plan, and you prepare an empty space and a set of proposals, and you present them to an inspector, I think, and they become adopted, and those policies in that neighbourhood plan have to inform the local plan and QED, major strategic development ideas. A neighbourhood plan takes an enormous amount of work, And I've never seen people here wanting to do a neighbourhood plan. But we could. But it's a technical task. Be interesting to look at the timescales. So I did attend on behalf of the HCCA, the Council's Neighbourhood Planning meeting a couple of months ago now. And that was when I first saw this level plan presentation and asked them to come here. And there are neighbourhood plans that have popped up for Knowle and for a bit of Knowle West actually, different parts of the city that have found themselves under pressure. We could do that too if we wanted to. Later then. Sorry. I assume it's a follow-on question, is it?
Yeah, it's sort of linked to everything actually that we've heard. So I'm Debbie, I live on with this little lot here. Sorry. Sounds the mum of the snake. I think a couple of things, and sort of following on from that, I kind of agree. I think, these conversations are great, but they feel like conversations, and I'm yet to really believe that we are being listened to. I know that we'll have a strong kind of conversation with lots of people. Nobody likes the work that made Western Harbour. If we're talking about community with Cumberland Basin, Western Harbour was kind of, that kind of Ponzi idea to make it sound really smart. So I don't know whether it's going to become a new postcode, but anyway, that's one point. And I think, the point that Rupert made around the roads and other people have made around the roads, I think that's absolutely key. And don't underestimate how much traffic comes in for business, from outside of Bristol. So that's the bit that worries me the most as well. It's not about, we talk about getting rid of cars, I get that, but actually let's not force the ball round on us and have one road that doesn't make sense.
Well, that's something to work through, isn't it? I don't know. I think maybe one passing road and no more might be better, but that's for discussion, that's too detailed. Thank you for your comment on Western Harbour or Cumberland Basin. I think many of us would agree. It's Cumberland Basin. Gentleman here. Sorry, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, I do.
This gentleman first, and then we'll come back to Anna.
Christopher Harbour, living just up the road. I'd like to come back to a point that Caroline Graysborough mentioned, and this is this evil thing called the road. I'm not sure that the thinking is so far recognised that it isn't just a very important gateway to Bristol. As it stands at the moment, it's a major link. It's a major link between Bristol Airport and the M5. And from where I sit in the morning, you can observe the traffic on that Cumberland Basin, and it flows. There's occasional traffic lights that stall it. The plans that were shown, now I'm not sure if I'm allowed to call them plans, and it certainly wasn't called a consultation exercise, but it amounted to something like that. 3 plans were shown in this very church 4 or 5 years ago, and the question of rebuilding the existing bridge was ruled out by Martin Rees. The single criteria, it has to release land for development. And that criteria was not met by rebuilding and reinstating the Cumberland Basin. So 3 alternatives were shown. Now, okay, they haven't been formally published, but they certainly were shown. And that scared the living daylights out of many of us, because it showed the whole of the A4 traffic coming into Hotwells Road across what is now Merchants Road, where a new 4-lane highway swing bridge would enable the traffic to continue and get out towards Long Ashton. The only option shown alternative to that was a new 2-lane highway with swing bridges, not very far from the existing suspension bridge. And it was that suggestion that caused horrors to people who regard that as an iconic bit of Bristol. Thanks.
Thank you. I think if Emily were still here, she'd say that that's work from the past and we've got to start again or work on those building blocks, which is why I asked the question about repairing the bridge. Because repairing the bridge is also an option, but that wasn't in those options in 2018. And when the consultants are brought on board to do the master planning work, the first thing they've got to do is reset the brief. The project has a month set aside to tease these things out. And that team will be asking those questions because money will not fund bridges, roads, flood defence, housing, schools, community infrastructure. It won't work. And it may be that this is all about scaling back down to the things that really need to be done. I'm kind of minded, Anna, do you want to come in? And then I'm just going to give a warning. Where's Patrick? Would you like to say anything? Are you the only councillor here? I'll just check. Yes. Anna first.
I just want to raise the issue about the current flood risk strategy that the council's proposing, which they haven't passed yet. Although, does that go to cabinet next week? Yeah, it's really not a very good strategy. It's based on a lot of hard surface flood risk mitigation, prevention, and it's so long that it's very, very hard to decipher. But don't be fooled by anyone telling you that this flood risk strategy is a good solution for our area or for Bristol as a whole. Because water's always going to find a way, and there are other options which we should as a community be consulted on. I'm not sure whether there's an opportunity to comment on the flood risk strategy within the local plan. Do you know, Sandra?
There's certainly, I'm sure you'd find a policy to say you haven't taken into account a proper flood risk strategy and therefore the plan is unsound, and seek to sit in front of the inspector and talk about it. But yeah, you need to have a look at that. If the report has just been published, there's a week for the public to make representations on that as well, before it goes to cabinet.
It's not much time, is it?
No, but then, if anyone does want to make representations and ask to talk, I would imagine at the beginning of the meeting that would be possible. That's what most people come to. I don't know exactly what I do in Bristol.
If I pass over to Patrick.
Is anyone happy for me to ask Patrick to say a few words? It's not a political meeting, but he has come along and I thought that might be interesting. And I haven't asked him to do it before. Just introduce yourself, Patrick, perhaps.
Well, thanks very much. I'm Patrick McAllister. I'm the councillor for Holst Harbourside. Katie Grant, councillor for Clifton, was here earlier, but I'm afraid I had to step out for a family issue. I just have 3 points to make quickly. Just from listening to discussions taking this far, there's been a lot raised, so I won't attempt to cover it all. Firstly, we've got a lot of discussion about the road infrastructure. I think a lot of the points that have been raised today by the planners earlier and by everyone here are really important to keep in mind. I think there hasn't quite been enough emphasis on the fact that the roads do need change because they are coming to their end of their lifespan. They are already carrying far more traffic than was ever anticipated when they were designed and built. So do nothing, I think it wasn't on the slides earlier, but do nothing with regard to the roads at least is not an option, and hopefully with modern understanding of technology and traffic flow and so on, we've got an opportunity there to rationalise the system so we can have the same traffic load but in a more efficient manner. Respectively, the maintenance is costing the council more and more every year, and if we continue on this path, we run the risk of catastrophic failure, not to see the bridge collapse. So we could look at repair as well, but I think personally my perspective would be that would be a wasted opportunity to try and improve the area. Say if we're going to have a lot of work in the area, which don't need to be on repair anyway, we may as well try and improve the base level by which we're set off from. On the flood risk strategy, that is some of the figures there. I'm sure many of you will be statements as well. I'm pretty sure there are other councils who are doing the same thing there. Again, like a huge piece of work that's been taking place on that. And finally, just on Western Harbour more generally, the Western Harbour Advisory Group that was mentioned earlier, I attended a council briefing last November, late November, which was mentioned earlier as well. We expressed, so myself and several other councillors there, expressed the strong desire that we would have councillors representing the community on that group and therefore part of the formal decision-making structure. We, of course, are accountable to you all. We are good, well placed to feed in the views of local residents to that process. We found out a few weeks later that the Mayor's Office intervened to prevent councillors from taking places on that committee. I'm quite annoyed about that, to put it very mildly. I have raised this in the council chamber, and we will continue to look at whether we can get onto that committee from now into the future. We have elections in May, and there won't be a sitting there or an administration after that, so we will see how things might be able to change from then on. But that's the main update I've got on that front.
I mean, how can we back you up in your idea, which makes so much sense? Because we were infuriated when the original consultations included very few people from this area who represented us.
No, thank you, that's a really good question. And the council has a really bad track record of consultation and making sure the communities affected by big developments such as these are adequately consulted. I think you all felt the brunt of that. I know there's lots of people present who have not been listened to by the council for a number of years. There are many other people here have the same story. I think a really good way would be to write to your local council if you are represented by someone who's sort of not me or one of the Clifton councillors who are, the Greens, we attend the Capital Basin Stakeholder Group. If you're represented by councillors in the Labour Party, because the Mayor is a Labour politician, I would suggest writing to them, write to the Mayor directly and ask that local representatives be included and make some statements to this effect or ask questions to this effect at the next full council meeting. That I think I'm not sure there will be a public forum in February because that's the budget, but there will be in March. So I would really encourage you to go and make your voices heard at those meetings. If you ask a question, you will guarantee a written response from the Mayor. So I would really encourage you to do that to show both help put public pressure on the Labour administration and also to show the strength of feeling among the community on this matter. The moral support of the community is incredibly valuable to me and my colleagues as we try and make the case for getting more democratic representation on policies like this. So thank you, that's a brilliant question.
So the question of Patrick, and then we'll ask questions from that.
So, for anyone who didn't hear, the question was how much of this project is under the control of the council. And the answer to that is most of it with an asterisk. So the council is the highway authority, the council is the planning authority. Developers would love to do anything they like to this, and obviously it's the council through the teachers for planning authority, which is there to control and coordinate that process. So to that extent, it is entirely within the control of the council. That being said, the council can't afford to fund a project like this itself, especially infrastructure. So the West of England Combined Authority, the regional government, and also the central government will be putting in money towards something like this with all the infrastructure changes. Will have a degree of influence over the final project, so to speak. But ultimately, this is very much a Bristol City Council process. One of my priorities is to try and make sure that that isn't just a process that takes place in technocratic meetings among council officers. That's a process that involves the community formally through the Western Harbour Advisory Group and also informally through community meetings and outreach, such as the one we've had this evening.
Okay, it's just about 8:30, a couple of minutes to go. Are there any other questions anyone would like to make, ask? And I think in particular, to begin to think about how you're going to respond to the local plan, but Bob Walton's put his hand up. I hope he's going to ask one that nobody has asked so far. Culture?
No, I'm not. I might not even do it, but I'd just like to challenge this idea about the existing system not being an option. On page 29 of this document it says, development will include a reconfigured system replacing the present network of roads and bridges with a simplified system. That's what it says, and that is one of the principles on page 29 of the current plan. If we are in the consultation a few years ago, then the proposals that were put forward, as the gentleman at the front said, were swept aside. They were rubbish, and they were rejected entirely by the community and by the councillors in the end. They were withdrawn. So, and there was very strong feeling that repair of the existing system is an option. And I think many people will probably find that, irrespective of the cost, compared with building a new system and the environmental damage that would be created by that, by trucks, by demolition, by trucks, buildings coming into the area, the environmental impact of that, compared with that, the cost of it, the repair of the existing system, which functions very well most of the time, might do with a little bit of modification, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't need much. That has to be an option, and I don't think our councillor, who wasn't around at the time, can just sweep it aside and say it is not an option.
Okay, thanks, Bob. And in fairness, Emily definitely confirmed when I asked repair as one of the options. We all know, whichever way this goes, it's going to be impossible to manage the traffic whilst the work's being done. So just think about the technical consultants challenge there. Right, are there any things is there anything we've missed? Can I just say, for me, we've missed community, culture, social, education. Sis mentioned it a bit, but take a look at the local plan, recheck. Are there any comments we should make on that area? Gentlemen there.
At the very beginning of this, they mentioned housing as the only comment the First Lady spoke about. Is there a master plan for housing in the city, which is close to all the city, as compared to just this part of the city?
In the local plan, it talks about key growth areas. Most of those are around the city centre, and there are a couple, central area, there are a couple beyond. It also talks about housing numbers, but the numbers are hidden in other supporting documents. And Simone said that the city cannot meet the needs of the city. I'm going to get the technical words wrong. You have to have a housing study which says how many homes the city needs, what kind of homes they are, and then the plan is meant to show how they will be delivered. You could sit in front of the planning inspector and say, the council said it needs 10,000 homes and they're only delivering 8,000. I'm making the numbers up. And that's a fact, because Simone said that at 1,900 a year, instead of 2,300, you're not delivering the homes. It's much more complicated than that, because around the central area, a home can be a student house. But actually, we probably all know we don't want more student houses, but we know people, young people, people in need who need homes, and it's how they're provided. I think that bit of the plan is flawed.
All I was therefore saying
it could be. And it's an interesting question, going back to Deb's question. Should we consider doing a formal neighbourhood plan? I don't know, maybe it's something that we should go away and have a look at in terms of the timescale relative to other planning processes. Deb?
Just to say, I'm happy to be part of that.
Yeah.
Organisations towards neighbourhood plans. There's lots of pros and cons.
Yeah.
But just hearing people say that happening is something, I wonder whether that's really neighbourhood.
Thank you.
Just to add, we are the steps to doing that, and also doing in terms that we're working with the making the right organization. The locality is now about the technical application program.
Okay. So what next? The key what next is that the Bristol Local Plan, Regulation 19, plan that's nearly the plan, is out for consultation until next Friday. There's a process of making online comments. It's ever so easy. If you've got any doubts, say, I don't like this policy, change it to that. Make a representation. When it asks the question, is the plan sound or unsound, just put unsound, 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 and then submit it at the end. Sorry, that's me as a naughty planner. But you can do that, and then the inspector, the surveyor said, all those comments will be gathered up, and then if you want to sit in front of the inspector and talk about it, you could. I think that HCCA, my view, should be making representations on the place, how it works vis-à-vis the central area and vis-à-vis growth, and to seek an opportunity to talk in more detail in front of the inspector. But you individually should do that as well, or can do. You've got the link from the invitation if you want to look at the local planner, but it is clear on the internet. If you don't have internet access and would like a hand with that, come and talk to me and we'll see what we can do. Okay, thank you all so much for being here tonight.